Okay, so many thanks to our great boys of 22E3. And welcome back. We have heard opinions from children and parents who support sharing. And perhaps their excellent reasons have swayed you. And now let's listen to Group 4, representing parents who oppose the idea of sharing.
Class 24E3 and Mr. Alex Huang. So, as parents, we all want to celebrate our children's milestones. But when we share personal details or school events on social media platforms, we need to ask ourselves, are we really considering about their privacy and their future? Sharing, whether it's posting family moments or publicizing school events online, raises significant concerns. And we are not the kind of parents who believe in sharing our children's personal information online without the consent. And today, we'll explain why sharing can affect our children's privacy, safety, and their right to control their digital identity. So, let's explore why we believe sharing can be detrimental to our children. And the first reasons will be explained by Mrs. Phạm Minh Ngọc. Let's welcome her.
As a parent, I strongly believe that sharing is a terrible idea. One of the most serious issues that our kids may face with sharing is about privacy concern. Let me explain more about my opinion. Obviously, when we share our kids' photo publicly, every social media can see, and they can even use these photos for different purposes. With only a click of the mouse, bad guys can download our kids' photo, and they even can, and this even may lead to identity theft. In some cases, cyber criminals even edit our kids' photo illegally to create offensive or sexual content, and then they take advantage of it. A particularly alarming threat is the rise of deepfake technology, which can create videos or audios that convincingly replace somebody's face or voice. If cyber criminals use deepfake to abuse our kids' data, this may lead to identity fraud, and they even can use the data to create some content that misrepresent our kids. Can you imagine that one day you will see your kid's image on an advertisement that you have never heard about before? Or you can see your kid's image on an offensive meme, or even on a video with inappropriate content for adults only. I think that nobody wants to see these dangerous scenarios. Therefore, I have to say that the risks are really high. So, I'm strongly against sharing, because it's not only a bad idea, but it can pose a great threat to our kids' privacy and safety. Thank you. And next, Mrs. Ming will explain more about another issue related to this, which is lack of consent.
Mrs. Ngọc, As a mother of 2 young children, I often felt the urge to share every little adorable moment of my 2 kids. Just last week, my 5-year-old daughter just had her first football match, and I remembered my fingers just drifted over the post button on Facebook. But then I paused, and then I asked myself, is this my story to share? And obviously, the answer is no. One of the most fundamental issues with parenting is that children cannot give informed consent. Consent, by definition, means that having the capacity to understand and agree to the potential consequences of an action. Young children, obviously, lack the cognitive development to give informed decisions about their privacy or the long-term implications of having their personal lives shared online. So when other parents post family moments or personal details or pictures of them on the internet, they are deciding on behalf of their children without giving them the actual choice. And this raises important ethical concerns about whether parents should have the right to share intimate details of a child's life online without their consent. And in other areas, such as legal documents, medical decisions, children aren't allowed to make significant choices. And unfortunately, it is the same in the digital space. And sharing a child's own life without the consent disregards their autonomy and their future right to privacy. So, like many of you, I struggle between finding the balance between celebrating my children's milestones and respecting their autonomy. It's not so easy when your kid's cuteness is just out of this world, but I've learned to take a step back and consider the long-term consequences. In this area, without the capacity to fully understand what consent means, children are left vulnerable in this digital world. And in this sense, when parenting violates their fundamental right to privacy, and that decision of them could have a very detrimental effect on the children on the long term, and affecting how they view personal boundaries and consent. And that is another small point of us, which will be presented by Mrs. Nguyễn Thị Hoàng Yến.
Child. So recently, I've been increasingly worried about the implications of parenting when seeing my friends doing so, especially in how it will shape children's perception of privacy and online exposure. Well, let me explain. When parents consistently share details about their child's life without their consent, they may unknowingly set a precedent that normalizes public exposure. And this issue resonates deeply with me because I found out that children tend to absorb much of what they see from things around them. And when parents frequently engage in parenting, children may grow up believing that this behavior is acceptable, or even worse, expected. So why did I say that? Well, certainly I've done some research on this, and according to a social learning theory developed by psychologist Albert Bandura, children tend to form the understanding of social norms based on their surroundings, and they tend to mimic the behaviors of their parents. So to be more specific, if children are exposed to frequent online exposure, online sharing of their personal stuff, they may begin to replicate it when they're older, and this can even impact the future generations like my grandchildren or even more. And we all don't want that to happen, right? So we believe that parenting sets the stage for a cycle of excessive online exposure and potentially causing children to carry forward the behavior that they observed in their formative years. And this can have a significant implication on their mental well-being, their personal relationships, and also the ability to form a healthy boundary between what is private and what is public. And I definitely don't want my kids growing up thinking that they need to broadcast every detail of their life online. And for me, it's important to have the knowledge to make informed decisions because we all want to avoid putting our child in a situation where they feel like their privacy isn't respected. And that's why we are always mindful of the long-term impacts of parenting on children. And this will be presented to you guys by Miss Bùi Ngọc Ánh, and she's the mom of my daughter's best friend who shares the same concerns as me. And it's so great to have someone in your circle who is knowledgeable about this topic and with whom you can really openly discuss the issue with.
Everyone, and my name is Bùi Ngọc Ánh. As a mother of 2 children, I have been fully aware of the potential negative long-term impacts of sharing on social media on our children's mental well-being. Because in the reality, I've been witness a serious case, a troubling situation with my best friend's daughter. She's been struggling with many different stress-related diseases, and it's really related to her mental health, such as self-identity, body dysmorphic disorder, or even worse. And some of the parents sitting here still think it's harmless and beneficial for their children's future prosperity. And have we ever really considered how could these posts could actually impact them as they grow older? If we constantly sharing these pictures on social media, we are creating a public image of who they are for the world to see. And as they grow older, they might start to feel like they have to do that, they have to behave or act in a certain way just to meet the expectations that everyone that set for them and their parents have set unknowingly. And I think that whether it's being the star athlete, the straight A student, or the funny kids that everyone loves, that's a lot of pressure for our children, especially just a very young age. They have to deal with those situations. And think about how this could eventually impact their self-esteem. On a broader scale, they might start to think that they're never good enough to meet those expectations and live up to that image, because they are chasing this online persona that doesn't fully represent who they are. And that's not fair. That's not fair for our children and for their future prosperity. I'm not saying that we should stop posting any proud moments or any specific milestones entirely, but before we post any pictures on social media, we have to ask ourselves beforehand, are we sharing those pictures for them or for us, for the sake of our own satisfaction? And that is the and I think that minus part, if we're not mindful, we might be setting them up for some specific situations such as anxiety, depression, or even the fear of disappointing others. Thank you. And the next point is from our fellow parent, Mr. Bach.
I'm Việt Bách, a parent of 2 loving children. As a parent that's deeply invested in my children's well-being, this critical issue is definitely of my interest and of others as well, which is parenting could seriously impact our bond with them. When we post our photos about the children online, we kind of risk damaging the trust that they placed in us. While some may not really mind this kind of sharing, others, when they grow up, may become deeply uncomfortable with the image that we put of them on the internet. And as the nature of the internet goes, it's unpredictable what may happen to them. Like probably, for example, the images could be used for AI training by the social media companies themselves. And this kind of permanent online footprint Just make me understand that this can be harmful for our children. And can I ask for some more time?
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
All right, thank you. And I've also kind of observed a more concerning trend that our parents, us parents, actually sometimes kind of overshare our achievements to present an idealized version of our family life, whether it's to kind of like show an academic excellence in a meritocratic society. It pressures the children to try to maintain this image for the parent, to keep sharing this kind of vanity to their friends without any regard for the children themselves. And that's the end of my part. And next, I would like to introduce Mr. Đức Minh, also a concerned parent.
To this occurring problem. First and foremost, you should think carefully before posting anything on social media. Before bragging about how cute or how excellent your child is, you should always think to yourself, will they really appreciate that when they grow up? Or will they throw a tantrum and take everything you have? And additionally, avoid oversharing. You should limit the amount of information you share. Try to avoid including their birth date, their school name, their social ID, etc. In anything like that is a big no-no. And as a parent myself, I always try to review my privacy settings. Try checking your privacy settings on social media platforms thoroughly and limit the amount of people who can see your posts, and this will effectively reduce the risk of your child's identity and information being used in not so great purposes. And you should also be mindful when tagging your children in your posts, because that will increase the risk of them being used for bad purposes. And lastly, you should set the boundaries with the accessible nature of the web, that even small child can post anything they want. In fact, my 5-year-old child just created a new Facebook account without me knowing just the other day, and I think is a very concerning thing that's occurring in the current world when everything can be created so easily. So make sure to discuss the importance of protecting personal information and avoid sharing sensitive information with your child, and also make sure that your child recognizes this from an early age, as any consequences they do when at a young age can heavily harm them in the future, as the digital footprint is not easily erased. Thank you for listening to this, and we will happily receive any comments or questions to our speech.